All righty. What's going on, Huddle fam? Pastor Todd here. Welcome to day 3 of the Double Your Church initiative. And this is actually the time of week where we would do our normal coaching call inside of the huddle. And so I thought that I would just combine the two. We've been meeting at 9 in the morning. Monday and Tuesday, we will meet 9 in the morning, Thursday and Friday. But because this is our normal meeting time, I decided to do the Double Your Church call at this time. And so let me just go over here real quick, make sure that our group is live. There we are. And hey, as you log in, make sure you say hello. Let us know that you are in the room. My man, Ken Wade, is watching. Reverend Wade, hope you're having a great week. I know I really enjoyed our call yesterday. Here we go. So what I want to talk about, and honestly, really just for a few minutes, I want to honor your time today. And I want to talk about the difference between marketing and branding. And, as we talk about what it means to double your church and how I've said for the last couple of days, I'm absolutely convinced that you are only 2 or 3 decisions away from doubling your church. And so we've talked about mindset. We've talked about methods. Today we're talking about marketing. We're going to talk about mentoring tomorrow, and then Friday we're talking about a moment of commitment. And so, but today when it comes to marketing, people confuse marketing and branding all of the time. Marketing is the story that you are telling your target audience about your brand. Brand is what people say about you when you're not in the room. Okay, so let me say this again. Marketing is the story that you tell your target audience about your brand. Your brand is what other people say about you when you are not in the room. So so branding is not the same thing as a logo. Branding is not the same thing as a website or a Facebook page or anything like that. Now, those are all a part of your brand, right? But color schemes and fonts, that is not your brand in and of itself. Those are parts of it, but ultimately your brand is whatever your target audience says about you when you're not in the room. So ultimately, marketing is about building a relationship with your target audience so that you are both saying the same thing. Okay? So marketing is the message that you put out there. Brand is what they say about you when you're not in the room based on their experience with you. And ultimately, you want your marketing and your branding to say the same thing. Therefore, marketing is about building a relationship with your target audience. So when we talk about doing an outreach event, and let's say you do your outreach event like most churches do outreach events. You come up with an idea on Monday, and you want to do an event in 2 Sundays from now. So you plan the event all week long, and you tell the church on Sunday that the following Sunday you're going to do an event. And so they have 1 week notice where people have planned out their life on their calendar several weeks or several months in advance, and you don't even know if they're going to be in town for this big outreach event that you want to do. And honestly, with a lot of the guys that I work with, outreach events are really reactionary events. It's the man, we're not only are we not growing, we're shrinking. Quick, let's do an outreach event to get people in the room. And so the events aren't well thought out. They're certainly not well communicated. But let's just say that you get somebody to show up with 7 days notice. Let's say that someone sees a Facebook post or an email that went to a list and they show up, or someone invites somebody, and let's just say that they can tell the event is just thrown together, as a lot of events are. Let's say that nobody was in the parking lot, or showing them where to park, or at the door to greet them when they walk in. Let's say people don't know where to check their kids in, or where the bathroom is because there's no signage. Let's say that the music's not prepared very well, or the message you could tell was sort of thrown together. By the way, I can always tell when a pastor has thrown together their sermon, because they always jump on their hobby horse. There's 2 or 3 things that pastors maybe feel very deeply about. Maybe it's a certain doctrine, maybe it is a Bible interpretation about an end times kind of thing. Maybe it's political. I can always tell when a pastor has kind of thrown their sermon together, because out of nowhere, they'll start talking about this thing that had nothing to do with whatever the point of the message was. And I went and visited a church a few years back that had come to my church about possibly merging. We were going to take over their facility. There was only about a dozen people left in the church. They were all in their 80s. And the pastor, who was 83 at the time, started, preaching out of the Bible, and then all of a sudden jumped in this thing about Trump and transgenderism. Had nothing to do with the sermon, but you could tell he hadn't really prepared anything. And so he just sort of jumped on his hobby horse. So let's say that, you have thrown this event together, whatever that is, and people show up to the church. No one's there to greet them. No one's there to tell them where to go. The music wasn't great. The message was thrown together. Their experience of that event is what solidifies your brand in their mind. That's why marketing is the story that you tell your target audience about your brand, but your brand is what people say about you when you're not in the room. And so when that person goes home and someone says, "Hey, how was church?" and they're like, "Man, it really wasn't great," or "It wasn't what I thought it was going to be." "Oh man, the building was hard to find. I wasn't sure if I walked in the right door." And they don't know it's, because there was no signage. They just didn't know where to go. The guy started talking about Trump and trans people. All of a sudden, it was super awkward. Yeah, I'm probably not going to go back. So 6 weeks later, 6 months later, 2 years later, when they're working at their place of employment, and one of their coworkers says, "Hey, I'm thinking about trying out this church," and then they're like, hey, I hope it's different than it was when I went there. I tried it a couple of years ago. Here's my experience. So your marketing is whatever story that you're trying to tell your target audience about your brand. But your brand is whatever your target audience says about you when you're not in the room. There's a difference between marketing and your brand. So that's why I want you to imagine with me, the end of this week, I'm going to pick 20 churches that I'm going to work one-on-one with to double their average attendance before the end of 2024. And you and I are gonna meet one-on-one twice a month. I'm going to fly to your location one long weekend. You and your spouse and we're gonna have dinner on Friday night. I'm gonna take your elders, deacons, ministry leaders through the 90-day win plan on Saturday morning. I'm going to do a staff training for you on Saturday night. And then I'm going to preach for you on Sunday morning. And I'm going to be your hype guy, is basically what that sermon is going to be. Where I get up in front of your church and say, hey, folks, man, I mean, listen, I travel all over the country. I see a lot of churches. Let me just say that what God is doing in this church right now is unique. How grateful are we that Pastor Jamie is at the helm leading the charge? This is God's man. And I'm going to pump you up in front of your church and your community. And then we're gonna calendar out your year, your teaching series, your every time your church does communion or baptism or a baby dedication, we're gonna pick 3 to 5 outreach events for the rest of the year, and I'm going to lead the charge for your marketing. Okay, this is the guy that has spent $400,000 in the last 5 years on Facebook ads and other forms of marketing. I'm the guy that you want putting your church's ads together. And so when we talk about the fact that you're only 2 or 3 decisions away from doubling your church in size, okay, I'm the guy that you want at your side helping you. I'm not the hero of the story. Okay. Ultimately, we know that Jesus is the hero of the story, but you're the MVP. And my job is just to come alongside of you behind the scenes. And I'm going to be your coach. I'm going to be your accountability partner. I'm going to be your prayer partner. I'm going to be your friend. And we are going to see God do something amazing at your church before the end of this year. So with that said, Jamie, I see you too, buddy. With that said, I'm going to give you a few minutes here to ask whatever you want about the difference between marketing and branding. Again, marketing is the story that we tell our target audience about our brand, but our brand is whatever our target audience says about us when we're not in the room. So I'm going to open it up for a couple of minutes of questions here. Very, very excited to talk about, the Double Your Church initiative as far as what it means to have a mentor and this moment where we commit to making it happen. We're going to do that over the next couple of days. But if you got questions about marketing, go ahead and drop them in the chat right now. I love Dr. Pepper Zero. I prefer the just normal Dr. Pepper Zero. My wife's been getting Dr. Pepper Zero strawberries and cream. And then whoever did our online grocery order and drop off, I think subbed out strawberries and cream for cream soda. So it's okay. Just in case you were curious about what this was. And then, I've got my liters water that I get through every day too. All right. So questions about marketing or branding. We've got a handful of folks um, on here right now. I don't want to waste your time. These are really kind of lunch and learn opportunities for a lot of us. What questions do you have about marketing, whether it's banners, invite cards, door to door, Facebook ads, or I should say meta ads, SEO, website? Go ahead and drop your questions in the chat. We've got some comments coming up in here. I haven't seen the Dr. Pepper Zero Cream Soda. It's okay. Dr. Pepper 23 flavors of amazing. I'm really like an A&W guy, Diet A&W. Dr. Pepper's okay. I know it's the official drink in the state of Texas. In fact, Sarah and I were in Waco on Monday, and that is where the Dr. Pepper factory is, the Dr. Pepper Museum. I still haven't been inside, and frankly, I just don't care. Ken says, "How do you ensure that the two come together?" And I think how do we ensure that our marketing and our brand match? It's all about the experience of the person that comes. So you get this one shot, right, to make a great first impression. So if you're going to tell the kind of story that resonates with your target audience about who you are as a church, you had better make sure that the experience they have when they show up matches the story that you tell. So we do need to pay attention. I talk all about this in the first chapter of the church playbook as well. You do need to make sure that the place is clean, that the bathrooms are clean, that they smell clean, that there's signage. No one should ever have to ask you where the bathroom is, because when they walk in, it's obvious. The sign says this way, right? You need more. You probably need twice as much signage as you currently have. We tend to think about the people that we know, the people that have been going to the church for a long time. They know where everything is. We have to reframe how we look at the church through the eyes of a visitor. Rick Warren talks about he hired a photographer one time to come to the church and just take pictures of anything and everything that looked interesting to him at the church. And so, from the parking lot, the weeds that were in the bushes that no one had pulled, or a broken light bulb that everyone had just kind of gotten used to. And so we need to reframe how we view the experience of a person that comes to our church through the eyes of a visitor. My friend Greg Atkinson has a book called The Secret Shop, The Church's Secret Shopper, or something like that. And he actually hires himself out to come to your church for a weekend, and nobody knows who he is. The staff doesn't know who he is. He just walks in, and then he evaluates his experience through several key factors, about his experience at the church. And so that's one of the ways, probably a primary way, to make sure that our marketing and our brand are the same. That when we tell a story that resonates with the target audience, make sure that their experience matches to that story. Is our primary tool for marketing Facebook? Is it digital, or is it something with people evangelizing? So great question, Thomas. The answer is when you have less than 200 people in your church, you are the primary marketer of the church. So this is why we talk about the Dream 25 list. You should be able to list 25 families that live in your community that do not go to your church or any church for that matter. These are the people that you should be in contact with And I like to say once every 8 days. I would probably say, I'm eager, so I like one every 4 days. But it's not, every 4 days, it can kind of feel like stalking after a while. So I like to say once every 8 days. If you're working with someone that doesn't go to church, doesn't go to your church, you're building a relationship with them, once every 8 days is good because, after a while, and after 2 or 3 weeks, people can kind of pick up on the pattern. Hey, Pastor Todd texts me every Thursday at 4 p.m. Well, I want it to be Thursday at 4 p.m. the first time. I want it to be, um, then the 8 days later, Friday, 8 days later, Saturday, and then depending on the day and the time, my greeting in that text or email or phone call is going to be different, right? So, yeah, it's you are going to be the primary marketer of the church. You should have a Dream 25 list all filled out. Do I do an outdoor sign for every series? I would like to say yes. Um, we're not this series because it costs a couple $100 to do giant banners out in front of the church. And so right now we're doing the Unfriended series. It's a 3-week series. And so we're not doing it out. We have a standard church sign, Courageous Church, Sundays at 10:30. We're actually not going to do a series banner for the next series either because we're actually just going to have an Easter banner up promoting Easter. But on the day of Easter, my guys will go out and actually take the Easter banner down and put up the new series banner for our relationship series called In the Ring. And they'll do that during the final service of Easter Sunday. So, but typically speaking, yes, I would have an outdoor banner for every sermon series. Provided that it's like a 5 or 6 week series. You get enough use out of them after that. Should we be targeting online more or in person more? Not 100% sure what you mean by that, Thomas. See, here's the thing. At some point, look, if you believe the best about the people that go to your church, they may not necessarily want your church to grow, but they do want to see their friends and family come to Christ. And so, of course, logically, rationally, they know that the more that happens, the larger the church is going to get. But people don't buy into the vision of church growth. In fact, the only people that likes a full church is the pastor. Okay. So now you can get up in front of the church and say, hey, you need to invite your friends to church. Why? Because we want to preach the gospel and see people's lives change because of Jesus. And they'll invite people once, twice, maybe 3 times. But after that, they're like, listen, I've invited everybody I know. In fact, Joey said, if I try and invite him to church again, he's never going to talk to me again. So at some point, unless the person is a blatant extrovert, which most people are not, they've already invited everybody they know. That's why I love Facebook ads, because I can take my church database and upload it to Facebook and say, I want you to find people just like this. And do it within this zip code or this radius, from my church. I love online reach that way. But that's not a replacement for having a Dream 25 list. So, so there you go. I don't know if that answers your question, Thomas. but that's how I would answer it. All right, I got time for one more question, and then I got to get going here. Any other questions about marketing versus branding? Going, gone. Do not miss the next 2 days of the Double Your Church initiative. We're going to talk about what it looks like to have a mentor in your life. We're going to talk about a moment where you decide to make a commitment. It's time to stop talking about it. It's time to start being about it. And so tomorrow at 9 a.m., we're going to continue the Double Your Church initiative, and we're going to go through Friday. Love you guys a ton. Hope you guys have a great rest of your day, and we will see you bright and early tomorrow morning.